influencer.
Smash that subscribe button.
Oh my god, bro.
Oh, hell no.
Ah, the Smurfs movie. This is a movie I had on my list upcoming that I was not looking forward to. Since the first trailer, I knew this movie was going to be pretty bad, and honestly, just the Smurfs IP in general really hasn't done much in the past 15 years, being positive, really. The live-action movies are really bad. The Lost Village was simply okay, but really forgettable. Nobody watched that movie. And it just comes down to, why is this IP still going? Now, I get this franchise has its fans, and yes, they do speak up when, they're brought up, but it's not a massive fan base to the point where more and more movies should be coming out. If anything, this is one of those franchises from the 80s that I'm surprised made it past the live-action movies to still going. Because those live-action movies are nightmare fuel. They go down as some of the worst movies I've seen being a live-action hybrid. And then this movie came along, them trying to reboot it once again. And coming out of this movie, they got rid of influencer Smurf. Oh my god, everyone clap it up. Other than that though, yeah, this movie's pretty bad. I wasn't expecting much from this movie. I walked in expecting this to be absolute garbage, and coming out of it, yeah, it's still pretty bad. But it's weird to say that the trailers kinda did the movie dirty, but it was still bad. It's not like a Transformers 1 situation where the movie was still good. In this case, the movie just went from being garbage to just bad. Like, it's still a bad movie. One thing I'll give off is that this movie had no reason to be a live-action hybrid at all. It almost seems like they're trying to, reminisce of the original films that way. It had no reason doing that. Rihanna being in this film is kinda pointless, and you could say, a lot of the positive people will say, is that Rihanna's music in this is good, but it's Rihanna. What else did you expect? But everything else about her, though, in her acting, it's kinda cardboard, I'm not gonna lie. But what I can feel from this movie is that it was done by people that do have a passion for the Smurfs, but it was obviously pandered down by Paramount and their way of seeing things with how a Smurfs movie should be done, and it's almost like this movie is trying to be like Trolls so hard, and it just doesn't work. It's Temu Trolls, that's the best way of me putting it. Now, what is this movie about? Good question. What is the story? It kinda exists, but also doesn't exist. It's very weird. One thing that wasn't put in the trailer, surprisingly, is that the movie doesn't focus on Smurfette. It actually focuses on this Smurf that doesn't have anything going for him, and he sort of has an identity crisis. Now, something like this could actually work, but it kinda fell flat. I'm surprised Rihanna, the main selling point of this movie, was kinda sidelined in this movie. I mean, previous movies have focused on her so many times, so it's kind of a breath of fresh air to see someone else take the spotlight, but regarding story-wise, this movie is so fast-paced. Like, it does not give you time to breathe at all, and it's actually insane how fast this movie goes. I've talked about a lot of films that have fast pacing, but they do not compare to how fast this movie goes. And yes, you could say, oh, it's a 90-minute movie. No, it's really not. You know it's bad when they have to put a short in front of the movie. They usually do that for movies that are pretty short. And this movie is, yeah, pretty short. And that's also one of the problems I have with this movie. You really don't flesh out many of these characters, so the problems they do face, you don't really care. Yes, it's a Smurfs movie, I don't expect them to really go that crazy, but give me a movie where I'm going to care. There's so much thrown at you so fast, because they try to adapt the lore of Smurfs on how they're these guardian protectors of the universe, and I'm just like, slow down! And we're going from location to location, I kid you not. They are not there for any more than 5 minutes. We go to the next location immediately. Maybe it's for little kids to stay engaged with the movie, but for me, this was moving way too fast. One thing I can say that I actually am glad this happened with the movie was realistically, this movie, yes, it had its live action segments, but it wasn't the typical live action hybrid movie where they meet a human character, they freak out, they slowly bond over the movie, and thankfully that did not happen. They kind of just show up in the real world, and honestly, they don't really encounter any humans, they kind of just exist. I will say like a good 80% of this movie is animated, which is really good. If anything, I could say it's like going into the real world, almost like a SpongeBob movie, where they show up, it's present, but they're not there for that long. Most of the movie is animated, which I can give credit for. And yes, the animation itself is fine, it's not necessarily bad. It's kind of just sad this was the story they threw together with it. There were things I didn't expect. One, normally Gargamel is the villain of all of these stories, and instead they put his brother at the forefront. And his character is just It's not anything special. I'm surprised they put Gargamel more as like, honestly, they kind of gave him some sort of redemption in this movie. It's very weird, it comes at you very fast, and for those that know next to nothing about Smurfs, you're just kind of thrown at with everything. Like, Smurfette just casually acknowledges that, yes, she is a sculpt made by Gargamel to lure the Smurfs out to be captured. She kind of just throws that out there. It is a thing that comes back later in the movie, but it's not really the main thing about the story. The main story is about No Name Smurf. The locations they do go to, starting off with Paris, we meet Papa's brother, which we just kind of get thrown out there, and, you know, the humor is still the Smurf humor. Not a single person laughed at any of the Smurf jokes in this movie, except for one, we'll get to that later, but I will say that this kind of falls into the trap of a lot of meta humor. Like, they bring up Uber, they bring up LinkedIn, like there's a lot of product placement in this movie, and it's that kind of humor that just, it doesn't really work. There's very few movies that I see that are able to kind of crack that humor, and this movie is just not one of them. The more I think about it, it feels like it's just one big giant advertisement with a bunch of different brands and just putting on a Smurf movie on it, and a very confusing plot. One thing that just went unanswered, I guess it's cartoon logic at this point, Gargamel's castle is in the real world. That's one thing we do see. And Gargamel and his brother are both animated, and the humans in that building are also animated. So it's kind of confusing how they're the only animated characters in the movie, for human-wise at least, and it's just never talked about. It was one thing that just had my brain scratching. It was never brought up, but it just happened. It was weird. And then we got to the end of the movie. I know you don't care about Smurf spoilers. We find out that No Name Smurf did have magic powers. Originally, there was a book under his hat that was giving him the powers, and in reality, he found his powers, and there was one joke that was able to get it out of me, because I was so bored, I was not expecting that joke. There was one joke where Magic Smurf, before he got his name Magic Smurf, was deciding what name he wanted to have, and his first instinct was Kick-Ass Smurf, and it was censored, and my entire theater started laughing. That was the one joke that got everybody laughing, and then on top of that, they had another joke after that was censored. It almost felt like a DreamWorks joke. Like, it was like they waited till the last point of the movie to throw in something actually funny, and I will stand by that. That was good comedic timing, but that was that. Then the movie ended, giant dance party, and you realize, yep, this is the animated movie that was directly in the early 2010s, and then the movie ends, and I just sit there like, yeah, this is definitely one of the worst animated films this year. I give this movie like a 4. It was a 3 originally, but the joke did actually get me, so it went up to a 4. But honestly, I could not recommend this movie to you to see in theaters at all. There are so many things you could be watching right now. Superman, Jurassic World, hell, Fantastic Four is next week. And if you don't want to go to the theater, watch K-pop Demon Hunters. I'm gonna keep like recommending that movie to death. But that's my review on Smurfs. You already knew this movie was gonna be bad, but if you do have good thoughts about it, please let me know down in the comments. I'd love to hear your thoughts. And I will catch you guys in the next video. Peace out.